Hi, I'm Siobhan, and we're continuing our discussion with Dr. Edward Smink, who is a noted author, speaker, and life coach for caregivers. And this is a series of presentations. A lot of it is based from his book, The Soul of Caregiving. And so today we're talking about compassion fatigue. And Dr. Smink, I know uh, for myself as a caregiver and talking with other caregivers, sometimes we go through a rough period of time and we do get fatigued. And I love to hear from you how to resolve this and your views on that.
Thank you, Siobhan, and thank you, everyone. You know, compassion fatigue, many think is a mental illness. It's not a mental illness. Compassion fatigue occurs in caregivers because we caregivers care. It's just that simple. And we get exhausted in our caring. And one of the reasons we get exhausted is because we don't stop enough and reflect on these experiences, and we don't allow ourselves to have time for self-care. Compassion comes from the Latin word which means come, which means with, and passio, which means to suffer. And every caregiver I know suffers, even though they enjoy the work with those they care for. There are times of great joy, and there's times of sadness, and there's times of uncontrollable emotions that we caregivers experience. So caregivers experience compassion fatigue. It's the hidden cost of being a caregiver. So the question then comes, well, how do we recognize it? Well, there could be physical, emotional, and spiritual symptoms that occur. And that in itself is a whole nother talk. So I won't go into much depth. But, simply, we have different things going on with our body. We have different things emotionally going on. And we have sometimes we lose our motivation and meaning of our work. We become what I call a caretaker instead of a caregiver. We lose that original spirit, or I would say calling, in being a caregiver. And when we sense that happens, again, what's really important is that we pause and we reflect and we allow ourselves permission, and that's the hardest thing, permission to seek help, because we cannot do this by ourselves. If you ask yourself, how long have you been going through this? You may say a couple of months, a year or two. I'm at my point of, like a pressure cooker ready to blow. Well, that's a signal. It's a signal to say stop. And then the second part of that is that you reach out to tell your story, that you reach out to someone and say, I'm exhausted. I remember doing work for this nonprofit organization, and I started saying, I need some time off. And the people involved with it said, no, you're lazy. You can't do that. We got to get everything done. So you think of our workaholic culture, it's very anti-cultural to be able to say, stop the world. I have to get off. Well, I didn't listen to what was going on inside. Instead, I kept up until I got to the point of almost burnout. And so we don't want to go there. We want to, right up front, start acknowledging what's going on and not be afraid, not thinking we're going crazy. So compassion fatigue is not a mental illness. And most caregivers feel if they acknowledge what's going on, they're going to be labeled as someone that has a mental illness issue. It's not a mental illness, it's an exhaustion illness, because we care. So I hope that explains. And, when we allow ourselves to recognize what's going on, and we allow ourselves to talk to someone about what's going on, then we become free to make wonderful decisions about self-care. So the hidden cost of caregiving is compassion fatigue, which is normal. Remember the word normal. It's normal for caregivers to experience fatigue. And what we really want is to go home and say, my God, give me a drink. I'm exhausted.
Or a back rub. Thank
Amen.
you, Dr. Edward. This was so refreshing to bring this forth. I think a lot of people feel alienated from friends and family who might not be experiencing it at that point in their life. And eventually, most of us do. So thank you for bringing this to light, and I look forward to talking to you some more about caregiving.
Thank you so much, Siobhan.